still, Nigeria decides on Plus TV Africa. Agricultural research and development encompasses an extremely broad range of activities and potential innovations. Are we doing any in Nigeria? Well, that is the critical question, and we are continuing our conversation on that. We still have with us Emmanuel Ijewere. He is the Vice President, Nigerian Agribusiness Group. Thank you so much, sir, for still being with us.
Thank you.
Now, Emmanuel, when we're talking about research and development within the agricultural sector, what does this necessarily mean? Take us through the scope.
It means that whatever it is you're doing now, can't you do it better? Whatever it is you're achieving now, can't you achieve at a higher level? In other words, your yield, if you are getting 5 metric tons per hectare, can you go up to 10? Can you go up to 7, to 15, and so on and so forth? And number 2, can you do it a lot more efficiently where a smaller space or a smaller land is used for the same level of production? So, and how do you now improve the education of these people? So the research itself is how to improve what you already have, what nature has given you, improving and building on what nature has given you.
And in your observation so far, have we been doing any research? Because we understand that the tertiary institutions are the ones who drive this level of research and coming up with findings and a whole lot more. But do you think we are doing any research in agriculture so far?
A lot is being done. Actually, most of it, not necessarily in the tertiary institutions as we know them, like universities and so on. Very little is being done there. Most of these are being done in the research institutions, like FIRO, like NIHOT, like IITA, like Vaughan in Jos, like Umudike. All those, yes, those ones are set up specifically to research for agricultural industry. But the problem here is that research has moved away from what it used to be 50 years ago, 25 years ago. Nigeria has not moved from there. What has it moved to? It's moved to a situation where those who actually use the research are working with those who are doing the research. In other words, you don't start researching something until you know what you need, who is going to use it. That's exactly the situation. Let's give the vehicle, with the situation about the vehicles now. You have Tesla, is coming in for the non-fossil fuel powering. That means it's been electrically powered. Because the price of oil is going up and it's dwindling. So there's a demand for that going into the future. So they've researched into that. But in doing it, they ask themselves first, will people buy this car? Since the answer is yes, they go for it. In the same manner, before you do any research, line it up with those who will take it from you and move it to the next level.
Now, you're talking about integrated research such that there's no gap between who should use it and who is researching.
Yes.
How do we form the nexus?
The nexus is now in the process of being formed because in recent times, the Nigerian Agribusiness Group, incidentally, the Nigerian Agribusiness Group was set up by Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. You remember him?
Yes,
the former,
at the Bank of...
He saw the fact that the private sector needed to come together to be able to speak to government more positively, rather than them being in small groups. And that's how the Nigerian Agribusiness Group was formed. Fortunately, it's the Dangote that's the president of that body. And that is now beginning to work. So we are now going into discussions and we've started MOUs with these research institutions. What are we now doing? Many of them, we discovered that one particular research institution has 280 researches that have been concluded and are fantastic. But those of us in the private sector knew nothing about it. So we have taken them, removing the cobwebs and bringing them out for everybody to see now and sending it to people and say, please, this is how you can improve. This has been done. We link you up with the research institutions. Many of the research institutions are underfunded, but these private sector people are saying, for this particular one, we are ready to put our money in there because we are going to make profit from this increased yield and so on. That is how this is happening. It's happening very slowly, but it's beginning to. So it's not as if we are where we were in the 1960s. But also remember that until recently, until about 1970s, the height of the economy the strength of the economy was in the hands of the government. Government owned everything. The private sector in Nigeria really did not exist at that time. Only few companies like the UACs and so on. But that has changed dramatically.
Now,
So I think
Emmanuel, do you think that we should also be looking towards areas of specialization? Because at the end of the day, when we are looking at increasing our yield and having more resistant crops and a whole lot more, don't you think we are supposed to be specializing? Because at the end of the day, we look at advanced climes, not necessarily tilting to genetically modified products, but there are leaps and bounds when it comes to research and having stronger crops and seeds. What should we be doing in areas of specialization?
I agree with you, but in our own particular situation, we are short of everything. So specialization at this time may not be profitable. Let's take, for example, Nigeria today is the biggest producer of cassava. 40% of the entire world's cassava is produced in this small country called Nigeria. But we export nothing. Indonesia produces about 6% of the world's cassava. They export over about 80% of their produce are out there. That's the area of specialization we're talking about here, improving on this. IITA, which is the biggest research institution in the world for cassava, is based here in Nigeria, and they have moved cassava from being this size to being this size. Now, what is left now is for us to know, how do we capitalize on this? A country that produces only about 15% of the world's cassava, Brazil, is selling, I think, about 20% of its petrol or for fueling vehicles now comes from ethanol. Nigeria does not have one operating ethanol company. So those are areas we are looking at. Those are the possibilities. So we have an advantage in so many places, but we need to attack it from very many fronts. Not just, if we now say, let us concentrate on this. No, the country is too big. Our needs are too many. And we have the capability. And our youths have a lot up there. Very good.
Now, with all the research that has been done in the Nigerian agricultural sector, and all of those ones that you said you had to remove cobwebs from and all that, the fact that they are now in use, have we been able to begin to produce something so well and to the right quality and standards that we have begun to export them?
We've not gotten to that stage yet. You see, the other problem about export, when your country is spending so much money, wasting so much money importing goods, the moment you stop importing and producing locally, it's already an advantage because you're preserving your foreign exchange. It's the next stage there you go to start exporting. As of today, given the size of Nigeria, before we can get to a position where we start exporting, is to first of all stop the importation because the demand of our people is so high. Satisfy the demand of your people, then you can now start exporting.
So we're not exporting anything at this material
We are
time.
exporting a number of things. I was in France early last year, and I discovered that I went to the Rungis, is their huge international market, and I saw cashew with big containers, and I said, "Where is this from?" They said it's from Vietnam. I remembered that some of my friends exported cashew nuts to Vietnam. I said, "Do the traceability," and they now trace it. The guy came up, said, "Voila, original." It came from Nigeria.
Well, how did you feel at that point?
Me?
Yeah.
Because I was on the way to the airport, I called my friend and I told him he should be ashamed of himself.
You would have.
And I told him the price at which they were selling that. He sold his, I think it was about equivalent about 2 naira. These people are saying that equivalent of 25 naira.
Now let's also look at how climate change is defining what agriculture is going to be. Which areas should we also be looking at? Working within our weather patterns or looking at stronger irrigation-based systems, because at the end of the day, we can't talk about research and design without having the proper condition, chlorophyll, and a whole lot more for the plants.
You don't have to go back into history. We have a lot of irrigation systems in Nigeria. They were built for by government many years ago, but less than 5% of them are in operation today. Many of them have silted, that means they cannot really produce water flowing through them. But government is holding on to them. The first thing government should do is let go. Privatize it. Look for organizations that can take those over. They are spending money from the budget every year, paying salaries of people who are doing absolutely nothing, just standing there from morning till night. Farmers are looking for places. So if I want to do into irrigation now, I have to build my own irrigation system. Why not go to the one that's already there on a rental basis from government? That is where I said there's a disconnect between government. The government of the past was a government that owned and ran everything.
But
nowadays, they don't.
Do you think we also have an understanding of our topography and where we have our basins and linking all of our water resources as well to have this?
A lot of that has been done because remember, these various river basins were set up in a scientifically planned manner. Technically they are sound. Just that some of them were built in 1977. Since then, they've never been serviced.
Science is logic, so does it mean we are not logically thinking anymore?
Because the government itself, after some time, when they discovered that they were no longer involved in agriculture, they walked away. But they did not say private sector, because they do not see the private sector as part of government. You know, I keep on repeating the fact, there's a disconnect between the government and private sector. They hold the budget, they hold the money, they hold the power, they make the laws. The private sector only follows them. But the private sector is now trying to put itself together to be able to say, government, you have no choice but talk to us. Okay. And they're beginning to listen. That's taking time, but we're making very good progress there, and I'm happy about it. At least the last two governments have been able to show that kind of level of response.
Now, when we do have changes in the weather, of course, it's going to be disastrous when farmers do not know. We've also had cases of flooding in Nigeria, and lots of arable farmland washed away, and lots of farmers lost huge amounts of money when those things happen. We're in a new year, 2019, and we don't know what's coming. What is going on now? Have there been discoveries made by the NIMET, and how are they relating with farmers to ensure that we don't have those kind of losses that we've had over the past few years?
The past 3 years, the NIMET has performed creditably. They have improved. They really have upped their game. There is more information. For example, they started telling us what's going to happen in July 2019 and so on. That's very important. But the issue is this. Some farmers, or most of the farmers, even when they get the information, what can they do? Because of their farming habits. You cannot change it. In the dry season, they go to the river area and they plant. In the rainy season, they move upland because those rivers are overflooded and they are good. That's how they have always done. So if you tell them now that, look, this year's rain is going to be so much, what they will do is to say, we just go up to the highland. And if that highland becomes flooded, they become helpless. So we need to do a lot more scientific thing. And what they are doing is that if this kind of information comes, government, especially the local government, when they get it, they must sit down with these farmers. How do we work together to get this done? We need bulldozers to help move these things and stop the flow of the water. But there's disconnect. It's information that the people who are going to use it are helpless. Those that can help them are not really interested. So we need to create that interest at the local government level. Any government, state government that is not going to revive its own local government is a bad government, because the local government is where is the one that should have relationship with the farmer. Talk to them. They are the ones that will go to if they cannot do it at the local government level, go to the federal government or the local government or the state level. But you don't have that. That is the problem we're looking at. So what you're talking about now, NIMET comes up, well-educated people try to do what the best they can. But then it becomes nothing but just statistics. Because if they say there's going to be flooding, the same disaster we've suffered in those years will happen. Not because we did not know, but because those who know and can help did nothing.
And now, what sort of research do you also expect we should be doing in areas of fertilizers? Because at the end of the day, that field also keeps on evolving as well, away from animal waste and a whole lot more.
Well, a lot has been done because a lot of the fertilizer platform has been taken over by the private sector. Both those who are doing the refining and those who are involved mainly with the blending the various types, urea and so on and so forth. That's in the hands of the private sector. But what is also wrong here is that if you want to do business, there should be no interference. At the beginning of the season, government comes up and tells people, we intend to buy this quantity of fertilizer and subsidize. So the farmers are waiting for government subsidy to come. These various people have their warehouses filled up. Government does not come to them until very late because these farmers will not buy from you because government is going to give them at a subsidized rate. So why would they do that? That happened last year, and we said, please don't do that again this year. If you are going to have subsidy in this, subsidize it at least 4 months before and make the physical presence of the fertilizer available to the farmer, not after the rains have started and it's too late to use it. So that's the issue here. The private sector has improved and more fertilizer is being produced locally, unlike what was happening abroad. But we need government to understand and working with the private sector rather than turning into a political game.
Okay, now that we're having issues with interfacing with the government to ensure that we avoid issues with flooding.
Yes.
And we know that we can't afford to have losses at this point. There's also this famine throughout the season. How can we also leverage on research to achieve that in Nigeria?
Well, there is a lot that has been done there. But one thing you seem not to have brought on board is the issue of human interference with the agricultural cycle.
Okay.
The problem in northeastern Nigeria has affected this because a lot of farmers there are no longer really contributing to the national agricultural wealth of the nation. And that was a very good area for some of the crops we're looking at. And we are now relying on a number of countries like Niger and so on. But many of those countries up there too, they too have their own problems which are not being well publicized. And they come to Nigeria and they take out a lot of produce. Although because they are small countries, we don't notice it much. But we also discovered that those countries out there are the biggest importers of rice. In actual fact, the last statistics that came that Niger Republic, the amount of rice they imported in 2018 was equivalent to every human being eating 1 bag of rice a week, 150-kilo bag of rice a week.
That's
Where did it end up?
It's
Nigeria. So those are the issues that, this is affecting our Nigerian farmers, especially the rice farmers, and so all these things play together, and that's because there is no real connection.
Now, Emmanuel, in rounding up our conversation, now, what sort of language do you think we should have put in place for farmers, the local farmers, and then those who are into mechanized farming and a whole lot more, need to understand and utilize all of the research that has been done and are still yet to unfold?
Yes. Well, first of all, bring the researchers to the field. An example, 2 years ago, we suffered from tuta absoluta that wiped out tomato in Nigeria. And then we now came up with a lot of countries abroad sending us chemicals and so on. But NIHOT came up and we discussed with them. We went and they saw what they had. We took them to Gombe. What was it? A plastic bowl. Detergent, ordinary detergent. Pour water in it. It foams a little. Put stone inside and put a lamp on top of it at night. Those tuta absoluta, they are insects, they are moths, butterfly. At night, that light they come. By next morning, most of them are dead. Whereas the chemical that was being imported was so expensive. These are the little things. So it was a great achievement. But even then, that lamp itself was somewhere around 400 naira. To these farmers, that's a lot of money.
Okay.
So we're now saying we're beginning bit by bit. That's a research work that is practical. And they will also discover that the neem seed, the neem tree. You don't know whether the neem tree is the most popular tree in northern Nigeria.
Exactly.
The leaves, grind it. The water that comes from it is the best insecticide you have to kill insects and so on.
So,
and in a
so the more
manner.
we make our research local,
Absolutely,
the more we're able to achieve more. Now, let me also put this to you. We also know that there's been this concern about how we preserve our products, all that we have to put in our stores and in the warehouses and all that, especially beans. There's been a lot of concern about the chemicals that are used in beans preservation.
Yes.
Where are we in research on that count?
You gave the example of beans. Specifically on beans, what happened recently where some beans that was exported to Europe was condemned and destroyed. And it was very well reported in the media. It was very, very good. They drew attention to that. So new ideas are coming up on preserving beans. So all these things, when they happen, because this has been the things we have always been doing, but there are now better and natural ways of preserving beans. But it's taking time to pass it through these people. But then you are now having clusters coming together. A lot of clustering is taking place. That means cooperatives and so on. It's easier to put 50 people in a room and teach them in 1 hour than go from farm to farm telling one person at a time. That is another thing that is beginning to take root. I believe that the agricultural future in Nigeria is quite bright because a lot of young people, a lot of well-educated people are coming to the field now because they can see that there is money to be made there. And that's why we pray that the price of oil should eventually go to $1 per barrel. And that will help agriculture in Nigeria. Sanity will return to our
Because
country.
obviously we'll have no option but to run back to agriculture in one day.
God bless you. That's
Thank
exactly
you so
what I'm
much.
saying.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel Ijewere, Vice President, Nigerian Agribusiness Group, for your insights on this topic. It's been very great enjoying this conversation because agriculture, everything in life actually boils down to how much we're able to harness agriculture.
And we wouldn't like to go hungry, would we?
No.
Certainly not.
Definitely, because food is one of the basic needs of life. Definitely, it's the first basic need, actually. Well, agriculture, the conversation has been very enlightening, but of course, we'll have to go for a short break. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for joining us. I will go for a short break, and then we'll be right back to round off the show with another segment.